Hello, everyone. We're just going to wait a minute or two just as people keep trickling on in. I hope you guys have had a great day attending some of the other hackathon events and getting some groundwork done on your projects. I'm really excited to see some of the projects that you guys come up with. So I'm just going to wait a minute or two for everybody to get settled in, and then I'm just going to hop right into it. Kind of before we begin, sometimes I do like to recommend people bring just a piece of paper and a pen. Sometimes it's nice to kind of jot down, different things that you learn and different insights that you have during the course of these workshops. It helps make sure that it sticks, that you really learn from these workshops, and you're able to apply that to whatever you're working on, whether it be the projects that you're presenting at Hackathon or any other presentations that you have, throughout your careers and throughout university, whatever that may be and wherever that may take you. So it looks like we're about at 7:02, so I will get started so we do have enough time for our interactive segment of today's presentation. Hi, we're Doordash, and we enable every restaurant to deliver for customers. We offer restaurant food delivery in under 45 minutes, and for restaurant owners, we provide our own drivers, and we manage the logistics of delivery. Now, you might think that food delivery is a solved problem, but if you live in Menlo Park or Palo Alto, you know that that's not true outside of pizza joints, and just about no restaurant in this area delivers. Therefore, services like Seamless or Grubhub, which are merely aggregate menus, don't actually deliver, and they don't work. In fact, it means that the market is underserved because over 70% of the United States areas don't have restaurants that deliver. There are other courier services who are sending people to take out orders on your behalf, but because they don't partner with the merchants, they're slower and structurally more expensive. We are the only company in this space that manages both our own logistics and the partners with the merchants. We figured out a model to make customers' deliveries work because we control the entire experience. We offer the best experience at the same cost. When an order is made in our system, it gets placed immediately at an iPad installed at the restaurant. We've also built our own logistics software to make it dead simple for any driver to onboard into our network. Our logistic model means that over 3,500 deliveries have been made with an average of just 44 minutes delivery between when you place an order and when you receive the food. And this is much better than our peers at 68. And even better, we're doing this in cities. They operate in cities, but we operate in Palo Alto, a city that's much more spread out and much more difficult. We've grown our week-over-week orders by over 33%, and we've generated over $1.5 million annualized for our restaurants. We figured out how to make customer experience deliveries work, and our growth proves that with our driver network and our logistics software, it enables us to go beyond food. We're building the FedEx. If you were building the FedEx of today to manage local deliveries wouldn't happen overnight or even same day. They would happen on demand. And that's what we're building at Doordash. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Josh, and I'll be hosting this workshop titled A Developer's Guide for Pitching and Public Speaking. A little bit about myself is I'm a student studying business at the University of Toronto. Kind of my experience in the startup space and pitching is I got to intern at a pre-launch startup that had done their Series A funding. So kind of got to watch the CEOs build their pitch decks, build the branding all around that. I've also had the experience of sitting in on a lot of startup Edmonton community pitches where a lot of students would come forth with their student projects and pitch to angel investors for seed funding. So that really kind of got me into this space and into really amped up and excited for pitching and to host this workshop for you guys right now. And right now, I'm currently working with Speech Dojo, a nonprofit organization that works to make public speaking more accessible for everyone. And I'll be talking a little bit more about that and some of the resources and services that we provide later on in the presentation. So this Doordash demo that I just showed you was actually an exact transcript from the 13 demo day that they did for Y Combinator. So this was the exact transcript that they used, but also the exact slide deck that they used. Now, you may have noticed a few things. Firstly, that it wasn't very over the top. The graphics and the deck and the pitch itself was very, very simplistic, right? It was very, very to the point, but it was super effective in showing off exactly what their product did and what the direction and trajectory of that company was going to be. And then the second thing you may have noticed is the graphics are definitely a little bit outdated. It kind of looks like exactly what you'd expect from a 2013 kind of PowerPoint presentation. I think pitch graphics have gone a lot kind of higher in quality, but it just goes to show that it's not about fancy graphics. It's not about designs and animations that are going to make your pitch great. It's really, really about that high impact content that's really going to draw in your investors, that's really going to draw in judges in your hackathon competitions. It's the quality of the content of your pitches there. So why public speaking, and why is this workshop so important? I'm not a technical person. I'm not very strong in my coding, but one thing that I do know is that public speaking is absolutely critical, regardless of what career path you go in. And this is something that almost everyone knows. Everyone knows that public speaking is important, but very, very few people actually take that chance and take that opportunity to master it. And if you do master it, it'll serve you so great no matter what you do, no matter where you work. So whether you're going to be a back-end developer, you're going to need to be presenting to your team and collaborating with your team. And that requires really, really strong communication. If you're a project manager who's a little bit more removed from the work, you still need to have those critical and engaging kind of public speaking skills. When you're talking to your executive, when you're relaying information back and forth from your team. Then of course, if you're kind of an executive on a team, you're at that high level, or you're even starting your own startup, you need to be able to pitch, and you need to be able to talk to investors and different stakeholders in the projects and companies that you're going to be a part of. So public speaking is absolutely critical regardless of where you go. And it's one of the skills that a lot of university students lack, and that's why they kind of lag behind. So if you're able to unlock that skill in yourself, which everybody absolutely can, you can kind of accelerate your careers and your development in university and definitely and beyond. So a little bit of ground rules before we get started here is feel free to ask questions kind of at any time. So as the kind of questions go in, sometimes we'll be taking breaks in the presentation to answer those questions. So feel free at any time in the Slido, feel free to drop in all those questions that you have, because we will have chances to pause the presentation and then address some of the questions that you guys have. So with that, I'm just going to hop in and go right into it. So what are we going to be covering today? We're going to be covering all of the top elements of a pitch and all the different elements that make a pitch very, very successful within this. And one of the things that I really, really want to note here is we're not reinventing the wheel when it comes to product pitches. Venture capital firms and CEOs of firms have very, very clearly outlined what they want to see in something like a project pitch. And that's what you see on the graphic here on the left. So we'll be going through all of these different elements: the cover, problem, solution, product demo, market size, business model, and so on, to kind of show you exactly what these mean and what investors and what judges are looking for, when you're going through your product pitches and giving this to them. But one small caveat to have is it really depends on who you're pitching for and what your pitch's purpose is as to which elements you're going to include in your pitch. So for example, if you're doing a funding series and you're doing kind of an in-depth pitch to an investor, you may need to do all of these steps. Whereas if you're doing kind of a project pitch at a hackathon or at a demo, obviously there's going to be some that you're not going to use, like your fundraising information, because you might not be at that stage yet. So it definitely is dependent on where you're pitching. But in general, these are kind of the overall elements of a pitch. And we're going to go through all of them so that you can pick and choose which ones you need for your purposes. So moving on to kind of the cover. We're not going to spend too much time on this, but one thing to note is you want to keep it very, very simple and refined. So this is kind of the first impression of your project, of your company, that you're giving people and you're giving CEOs. So this is your brand, front, right, and center. This is what people are going to kind of understand your company as. So spend some time tailoring it, but we're not going to spend too much time because this isn't a design workshop. We're going to focus more on the content. The second slide that we have here is the problem statement. Now, this is super, super important. And one of the ways that a lot of successful fundraisers and startups go about doing this is they like to outline the status quo. So for example here, this is one pulled directly from the Uber slide deck, where they speak about, the most used aging and inefficient technology. And this is in reference to the current state of taxis. So this is a very, very kind of down-to-earth, understandable problem that investors or just regular people are able to understand. And that's how you want to go about kind of keeping your problem statements very, very clear and to the point. This next slide here is again pulled from the Airbnb slide deck, directly from the one that they used to pitch in their early kind of stages of seed investing. So again, this is even simpler. 3 very easy points. Price is an important concern. Hotels leave you disconnected, and there's no easy way to book a room with a local. So they kind of outlined the status quo, and they outlined how there was nothing that solved the problem in their niche, with very, very simple kind of 3 statements right there. And as kind of you would expect, problem statements are followed up by your solution statements. And again, this is going to be something that you want to do to very much engage and captivate the audience, right? You're proving the case of your startup or of your project with this problem solution duo. So what you're doing in your solution then is, again, you're outlining what your product is doing, but you're highlighting the core functions. So what are the 2 or 3 or even 1 main function that your product is doing, and then explain how these directly address the problems that you just outlined in your problem statement decks. So again, you can kind of see how Uber did this exactly kind of in reference when they outlined the statement, when they outlined the status of the current taxi system in the United States. Their solution directly addresses that. So they say a fast and efficient on-demand car service. They outline their market, professionals in American cities. And they say convenience of a cab with the experience of a chauffeur. So it's exactly kind of addressing the exact points that they had in their problem statements. And again, here we can see something very, very similar. I almost like the Airbnb slide decks a little bit better because they're that much simpler. They're that much more concise. They say you save money when travel, you can make money when hosting in reference to their hosts, and then you can share culture. So very, very, again, very related to the 3 problems that they outlined, and then the solution addresses those exact 3 points. And what you're doing here is you're drawing investors in. You're drawing people to be interested in your project by saying, okay, this is a problem that I know is real. Maybe they've even experienced it in their personal lives. And then you offer a solution that's so good that they can't refuse it. They can't not listen to the rest of your pitch. And that's very much the goal of your problem and solution statements right here. Again, you're keeping it grounded, you're keeping it simple, you're limiting your jargon at the very beginning of your presentation because you want to be drawing people in and keeping people captivated and interested at this point here. So after you've done your problem statement and you've done your solution, one of the things that you want to focus on, and is very, very important, especially in something like a hackathon, is to do your product demo. Now, before we kind of go into the slides of what Airbnb did for their product demo, again, you have to understand that this one is a little bit situational. So for example, if you're in a hackathon and it requires you to actually show a real demo of your product, that might have to be something that's live. So you're showing, again, like a live screen recording of you working on your app or working on the real world applications of what you're doing. And same for an investment pitch. If you're able to do that, that's the best kind of scenario to do. But live demos kind of come with a double-edged sword. If you're pitching to an investor or pitching to a crowd, live demos can go wrong, and they have gone wrong. There's really, really famous examples of Tesla live models going wrong, and it's very, very difficult to recover from live models going wrong because you kind of lose trust in your audience. However, if that's kind of recommended or demanded by the situation that you're in, for example, a hackathon, you have to go with the live demo. But if you're kind of in a stage of fundraising for your company, and a live demo is possible, but you're not kind of 100% confident in it, there are kind of ways to go around that and to circumvent having to do a live demo. And one of the ways is actually doing screen grabs from your product. So that's what Airbnb has done here, where they show the exact user process flow of what a user would be looking at and exactly the flow that they would go through, when on their site and when on their project. So let's look at the example of Airbnb here. So in their first slide in this demo, it shows the homepage of Airbnb. It shows that you're able to search by city, and you're able to click listings in that city. So once your user has searched by city, they're actually able to review listings. They review listings within this platform, and that's the first kind of click. So they're not including anything about First you have to sign up for this. You get a confirmation email that books your account, and then you kind of are able to access that. They kind of cut away that extraneous thing because that's kind of understood. That's kind of one of the known things about signing up for a product. So they skipped just the bare bones of the product and just the simple workflow that they have here. After you review the listing, now you're going to click on the listing, and then you're able to book it. So it's just 3 steps that they used in their pitch deck to show that 1, 2, 3, this is the steps of exactly how we're using our product. This is how it works. And in doing so, they're doing a couple of things. One, they're showing ease of use. They show that this product is super, super easy to use. And immediately that's a big draw for investors or anybody kind of wanting to use their product. But 2, they're also showcasing their branding, right? They show kind of the entire brand and the entire marketing setup of their product just by showing this demo. So it kind of goes to show that demos are probably one of the most important parts of a pitch, because while you can kind of show that you have a really great problem solution, while you have some of the stuff that we'll be talking about later, if your product demo doesn't look really, really crisp and it doesn't work, none of that really matters because you don't have a good product. So if you're able to showcase your product really, really, really well, it makes your pitch that much stronger and that much better in the eyes of judges and in the eyes of investors. So really, really spend time on, how can we most effectively and efficiently show our product in this demo? And if you're doing something like a 2-minute pitch, sometimes it's nice to allocate about 30 to 45 seconds just to this demo, because it is so important in showing that your product works and that it's of a very, very high quality. One of the things that you do want to avoid kind of almost at all costs is like asking the people that you're pitching to, whether it be investors or an audience, asking them to open up a link and download it themselves. Because one, that's very, very time consuming. And the user experience from that isn't actually that great. Because one, you're going to run into a lot of logistical errors with people not knowing how to do things. But 2, if you have a short time in the pitch, if it's a 2-minute pitch, or even if it's in an investor pitch, that's a very, very time-consuming kind of process to take and having them sign up and go on it themselves. So if you're able to whittle it down to what they would have seen in kind of as efficient as possible, that's the best way to go about doing it. So our next slide here is a little bit of a summary. So what we just covered in the kind of first intro of the slides is basically your pitch intro. This is your hook. This is how you're going to draw your investors in, draw your audience in to say that, okay, this is a company that makes sense. The idea makes sense. They have some level of kind of product market fit, and their product makes sense because it addresses a real problem. And this is how they address the problem. And then this is how they do it with their demo. So it's very, very much a very important part, as all important parts of the pitch are important. But you want to be hooking them in kind of with this intro and with this beginning here, because that's the goal, right? So moving on here, we're going to be going to something called the market size. So one of the reasons why market size is important, because it's a little bit of a proof that even though this product is good, the problem is real, the solution is real, investors want to know that they're able to make money. So one of the things that we have to be able to prove when doing a product pitch is that a market exists for it. So whether that be kind of explaining a pre-existing market or showing why an emerging market would kind of come. So I'm going to go through 3 steps to how you would go about identifying what an overall market would look like. So the first step would be to define your target customer. So for example, if your target customer is teachers in the Ontario region, you're going to find out how many teachers are in the Ontario region. So first, you're defining the step 1 is defining your target customer. Step 2 is estimating the amount of target customers you have, and then giving a dollar value to each target customer. So for example, going back to our teachers in Ontario, let's say there's 10,000 teachers in Ontario, and you're going to give them a dollar value of $5. So that gives your market value of about $50,000 for these teachers in Ontario, because the product that you're going to sell them costs about $5. So that's how you're coming up with the overall market. And then the third step is going to be determining your penetration rate. So how much you're going to be able to captivate that market. So let's say you're going to captivate that market and penetrate at about 10%. That means you'd only be having kind of a $5,000 kind of market for your product itself. So those are just kind of using simple numbers to demonstrate what an easy way of doing the overall market and the market penetration would kind of look like. just to kind of demonstrate that example. Now, that's a very, very easy way of going about it. But there are more complex ways to do it when you're analyzing your competitors, you're analyzing sales rates. But that is a little bit complicated, and I don't think we'll have time to cover that in this session. But if you do have the time to, that is kind of recommended over this simplified version. But the simplified version is actually still used by a lot of startups, still used by a lot of investors to kind of understand that. And it seems we are just getting a question in the chat. So we'll pause for a second to address that one. Do you have any tips on breaking down nerves I often feel before presenting and pitching? And that's a great question. That's actually a phenomenal question because that's super, super common. Probably one of the most common things to have when you're going about presenting and pitching. And you can kind of go about this by doing a few things. And the first one is probably the most powerful one, and that's just preparation. Right? When you know your content, when you know what you're going to say kind of exactly, you're going to be a lot more calm when going about this approach here. So for example, if you're giving a 2-minute pitch, one of the things in public speaking, it's not always recommended to memorize your speeches and memorize what you have to say. But if it's something like a 2-minute pitch, sometimes it's almost recommended to memorize that 2-minute pitch because it's only 2 minutes. So if you know what you're going to say, kind of the ins and outs of what you're going to say, you're coming off a lot stronger when you are presenting this because you know what you're going to say like at the back of your hand. You're able to kind of read that room there. So definitely practice. Keep practicing your pitches. A lot of people think that, these startup entrepreneurs will just kind of walk on stage and give their pitch, but they don't understand that a lot of the times they've gotten professional coaching. They've practiced that pitch 100 times before they give that 2-minute speech. In the example that we went through with Doordash, the delivery he gave was absolutely flawless. And you can very, very much tell that he had practiced speaking that, at least 10 times kind of before walking on stage and doing that. So again, practice as much as you can. And the more you do it, the more you get better at it. The more you're able to kind of put yourself in front of an audience, practice in front of your friends, practice in front of coworkers, pitch to your family members, pitch to anybody who will, have the ears to listen to you. The less nervous you'll be, when you're in real world situations and you kind of get going there. So I hope that kind of helps with your answer, with your question. If you have any follow-ups, definitely feel free to drop them in chat as well there. And anybody else, definitely feel free to drop any questions kind of as we continue going along here. So kind of back to market composition and the market valuations here. One of the other things that a lot of startups and companies choose to do is they kind of segment the market. So they kind of show who are the kind of major players in these markets, and then where are we going to fit into this kind of landscape of the area here. So in this example, you can see that they're outlining kind of the spaces that Uber was going to be using in. So they identified that retail, non-airport trips are the biggest kind of chunk of the current taxi services. And then in their pitch, they explain how they're going to be able to capitalize on that because there is such a big need in that space there. And then again, this is one of my favorite slides of the whole presentation, just because I think it's a little bit funny. But this is Uber explaining what they think their projections are going to be going into the future. So on the very, very right-hand side, you see their worst case scenario where they remain a 10-car service. And they have about 100 clients in San Francisco because that's what their size was at the time of this pitch. And then in the middle, they show their realistic success scenario where they get just 5% of the top 5 US cities, generating about 20 to 30 million profit. And then in this best case scenario, they generate 1 billion in yearly revenue. The reason I love this pitch so much is because they actually exceeded their best case scenario, even though they were realistically pitching their realistic success scenario kind of as their main goal. I just think it's kind of nice that, they were able to do such a good job that they actually surpassed what their best case scenario even was by a long shot at that too. Okay, so this brings us to our next slide. And again, this is very, very important because at the end of the day, a business investor, an investor in your company is going to want to know how can they make money. So what your business model is doing is it's showing, you've showed your project, your company to the investor, and now you're showing how you're actually monetizing that. How are you making the dollars that you say you're going to make? And Airbnb, again, simplicity is so key here. They do it in one statement. They say, we take a 10% commission on each transaction. It's as simple as that. business model is a little bit more complicated than that, and they do more than that. But at the time, that's just what it was. They would take a 10% commission on every transaction. And a statement like that makes it so easy for investors, for audience members to understand how this is actually a monetizable service that people do. And then they go in and show kind of what exactly that would amount to, kind of considering their market valuations there and their average fees of each consumer. So they're able to come up with those numbers that you see in the slide here. This next slide, again, very fun. It's actually, I don't know if it was popularized by Steve Jobs, but Steve Jobs was definitely one of the ones that a lot of kind of startups and a lot of entrepreneurs take inspiration from when doing competitor analysis slides. So what people are doing here is they're showing what the current kind of competitors in the market, what they do and what kind of space they exist in. And it usually involves kind of measuring them on a 2-scaled axis. One scale shows one kind of feature that you have, and then the other shows another one. In the case of the iPhone, it was a little bit kind of a jab, a little bit of a joke one, but it was very true. And the iPhone was able to do it because the project was just so good. You might want to be a little bit wary of doing stuff as extreme as the iPhone, unless your product is just kind of out of this world, top 1% kind of thing. But it just goes to show how you can go about doing a competitor analysis. So again, the key here is to be realistic. Rank your competitors and show where your competitors lie on a very realistic scale. So you can see here with the iPhone on the left-hand side that the Moto Q, the E62, and the Trio were very hard to use phones, and they kind of ranked in the middle on the smart scale. And then you can see the iPhone kind of way out there in the top right corner, all the way on the easy to use and all the way on the smart scale, just standing above and beyond all the other competitors. And this is their way of showing how different they were and how much of a trailblazer the iPhone was in the space that it was coming into the phone space that they were coming into. And then I showed the one on the right because that's a little bit more of kind of like a realistic use of this 2-axis method. And this one is done by SlideBean, which are a company that makes slides, makes presentations for startups in particular, but kind of just slides in general. And then they show kind of that they're automatic and fast because they have just kind of not cookie cutter, but template slides that you're able to create in them. And then they show that your design is really great. And that's contrasting to something like PowerPoint, which is a little bit more manual and time demanding. And the design isn't as nice as something that you would get with some of these other, other products that we have here as well. So I'm just going to pause there for a second to answer one more question that we have had in chat. And the question is, how do you recover from a mistake mid-pitch? Do you address the mistake to the judges? So this is a good question as well. And this is a really good kind of scenario to plan for. No matter how much you practice, no matter how you prepare, at times you're going to mess up. So it depends on kind of the scope of the mess up or of the mistake that you have. If it's a small mistake, if you're stumbling over your words a little bit, or you say a stat that was wrong on your slide, usually what you want to do is you just want to pause for a second, recollect your thoughts, and then move on. Chances are, as a public speaker, you self-criticize a lot harder than people other people and how other people perceive you. So for example, if you take a small break when you're talking, to you, it might seem like an absolute eternity, like you've been paused talking for like 5 minutes. But the audience, it might just be like a couple second blip in your presentation. So feel free to take a pause to recollect your thoughts and then move on. You don't always kind of need to address mistakes. You don't need to say, oh, I messed up there, and then kind of, draw more attention to that mistake. A lot of the times, if it's just a small mistake, it's a lot faster to just pause, recollect your thoughts, and then move on as if nothing happened. Because you're confident, right? You want to speak with confidence, and you want your investors and you want your audiences to trust you and to know that you know what you're talking about, because you do. You're the only one who knows exactly what you're talking about. So you can take confidence away from that as you kind of go on through your presentations there. So we will move on to our next slide here. And this one is titled Competitive Advantage by Airbnb. But if you're kind of referring to our initial list, this one would be considered the underlying magic. And this is one of those slides where you definitely do want to go into the more technical aspects of the product that you have. So for Airbnb here, for example, they're elaborating on their technology. They show that they have cross-platform listing on Craigslist and in Airbnb. They show that you're able to make your profile and book in 3 clicks, and they're able to kind of explain what the underlying technology is and why that gives them such a competitive advantage in the hotel industry, and why it's so much better than the products around them. So for example, if you're using something like this in your hackathon presentations, this is where you really, really want to go into the technical aspects of the project that you have and what you've been building and why that's so great. Again, this is the Uber slide deck showing their technology, showing their integration into mobile phones and their intelligent scheduling. This was something that was really, really huge for Uber in terms of the ease of use and actually scheduling rides and scheduling rideshare. So they really, really highlighted that in this technology slide. Then again, they show their payment and utilization. But then this third thing here is something that you may not know, but a lot of the times people will mention certain legal things, like if they have a patent confirmed for this design, because that gives investors a peace of mind that, okay, this idea is really, really good. And now I know that this startup actually has it on the lockdown. They're legally kind of safe from this idea being stolen. So that's also nice to mention if you do have that with you there. Okay, and then this next slide here is a go-to-market slide. And this is a slide that you will absolutely love if you're kind of into that business strategy, into that marketing strategy, because it's really important to show that you have said all this stuff, you have a really great product, you have all the underlying magic, but how are you going to sell this? Do you have kind of the business acumen? Do you have the business competency to come up with a strategy that works to get this product that you just explained was really, really great, to actually put it in the market, to actually get this adapted and adopted by as many customers as possible at the rate that you said you were going to do it. So what you want to do in this go-to-market slide is to explain your strategies, explain how you plan on actually launching this product into this space, and showing how you will do that. And one thing that's important to note here again is you don't have to be foolproof with these plans. They don't all have to come to fruition. What investors are really looking for here is this person that's pitching to me, are they creative enough to come up with solutions that can go to market? If stuff changes, if the landscape of this industry changes, do they have that competence and intelligence to pivot into that and to change their marketing strategies? So they're really, really looking for that creativity and that kind of realism in following through there. So kind of, for example here, Airbnb shows that they were going to be able to integrate themselves into events and market them at these very, very large scale events like Oktoberfest and the Mardi Gras. And they wanted to partnership with different cheap alternative travel websites like GoLoco and Kayak. And also kind of do dual posting features on Craigslist, where all of the postings uploaded to Airbnb would also be posted on Craigslist. And they explained this kind of intricate system that would drive up their sales through that. And the reason that I mentioned that they don't always have to work is Airbnb never struck a deal with Kayak. That deal never came into fruition. But because investors saw that they had this kind of creativity and thinking on how they were able to make these marketing kind of strategies, it didn't matter that it never came through, because they had confidence that the executive team of Airbnb can come up with very, very good go-to-market strategies to use there. So this next slide here is a slide that a lot of people choose not to include, but some people do choose to include it. So I thought I'd go over it anyway, but this is a slide that kind of goes through and explains what your team is going to look like and what the core people of the team are, who the core people of the team are. One important thing to mention here is you only want to be including the people who are at the core executive of your team. So if you have kind of any freelancers on the side or any advisors, you don't really want to mention them or kind of highlight them. You just want to be talking about the core people on your team. And there is kind of this common saying that goes around the startup community that it's nice to have a hacker, a hipster, and a hustler. The hacker is someone who's really, really good with their technicals. So they kind of maybe do the technology and the coding around it. The hustler is somebody who has that kind of business competence, who's going to come up with the go-to-market strategy and who's going to kind of drive the business side of things. And then the hipster is somebody who's really good at branding, really good at design. So when those three come together, you have a really, really great team. But that's just kind of a popular saying. Of course, teams can be made of kind of different people, but sometimes it's actually nice to highlight those three traits anyway, even if you have 3 people who are super, super technical on the team, and that's kind of running your executive there. Next up here, we have a traction slide. So this traction slide, again, is to show that investors that you have traction and that you are growing at a certain rate. Often, this is kind of the lethal blow of a successful pitch, because you're able to show that everything that has happened is true. And now here's the proof. Here's the social proof, and here's the numbers proof that our company is doing so good that we're getting all these traction points here. Now, one of the easiest ways to do it is just to show a sales graph or a user's graph and show how fast your product is being kind of integrated into the market. But if you're so early that you don't have any of that, you can kind of look towards this Uber example here, where they basically just showed every single small thing that they were doing and why that was kind of building up to their launch. So they showed that they had their website domain reserved. They had their bank accounts created, and they had advisors and clients recruited. Now, this might not seem like a lot, but it shows that they were actually taking the initiative to go step by step and making sure they had everything done. And then they also mentioned that they had raised just a few million for their small offices in San Francisco as well. So it kind of shows, that they were able to, knock all the steps and give investors confidence that they were getting traction and that they had something to project and look forward to there. And then this last slide, hopefully after this presentation, you've blown your investors away, right? You've shown them that you have a great product. It directly addresses a problem, and you have that solution for it. And this is the slide where you're going to be giving your ask, right? You're going to be asking your investors for a certain amount of money. And the way that you go about doing this is you explain to them what you're using the money for. So for example, in Airbnb case, they said they were looking for 12 months of financing to reach 80,000 transactions on Airbnb. And that means that they wanted an investing initial round of $500,000. And that they said they were going to get a revenue of about $2 million projected in that. So again, this is a very, very simple ask. It's something that a lot of people can understand. You don't have to be kind of an investor that knows kind of the deep financials of a company to understand this. It just shows that they have a plan and exactly what they were going to use the money for. And because it was so simple, it made it so effective. And that's probably a theme that you've been seeing around the entire Airbnb pitch deck, around the entire Uber pitch deck. It's simplicity. It's the simplicity in the slides that kind of allows it to shine through. And when you're presenting on these, you're able to expand on those and expand on the numbers and stats that you have in your slides while remaining concise in the delivery that you're giving. So that kind of brings our presentation on the pitches to an end. But one thing that I really, really wanted to highlight was a couple of things, a couple of resources that you guys can use to, one, perfect your pitches and really, really continue going on about, having these fantastic pitches and getting better at public speaking. But I wanted to show you guys a couple of resources that we have here at Speech Dojo that are actually completely free for students to use here. So it's actually a suite of 3 online courses. The first one focuses on the fundamentals of public speaking. So things like developing confidence and authenticity and adapting to the situation, which is very nice because those are actually the 2 questions that we've had so far. So if you ask those questions, I'd strongly recommend that you head over to the website and take those courses because they will do you a great deal of good, and they really help all of our users that have taken them so far. The second course that we have is the Acing the Job Search course. So this is a really, really good course, especially for anybody who's kind of in late high school or in their university years, because it gives you kind of an A to Z steps on how to get an internship, how to get a really great internship. It demystifies networking, which I know is one of those buzzwords that not a lot of people understand what it means, but this is one of the courses that kind of goes through it and makes it very, very clear and understandable, as well as cover letters, resumes, and interviews. It's a really, really good crash course on all of that. And then the third course that we have there is Becoming Presentation Savvy. So again, mastering those fundamentals of public speaking and being able to create really, really good looking presentations, but also delivering them and conveying them in a way that's very, very effective. And then a couple quick points about these courses is they're super short. They're all designed to be taken in about 2 hours. So if you have 2 free hours, instead of scrolling through TikTok or doing something, that is slightly addicting, but probably not the best use of your time, which I know I'm very guilty of, take one of these courses and it'll do you so much good, because we've had friends that just took the Acing the Job Search course and they've landed internships, within a couple of months after taking these courses. So they are very, very effective and a really great use of just 2 hours. We also have a growing community of about 20,000 people on our social medias. So definitely feel free to follow us on TikTok and Instagram if you want to be a part of that community and you want to keep getting those great resources and some of the tips that we share over social media. And the last thing that I wanted to mention is, as a nonprofit, all our resources are completely free. So you won't have to spend a dime, and you're getting the resources that are compiled from some of the best kind of sources in the world. We scoured the Harvard Business Reviews, all the Ivy League resources that they give their students to compile the best things that we can as possible to give for free to you guys. So because they're free, it doesn't mean the quality is lacking at all, right? These are actually some of the best resources you can find anywhere on the 3 topics that we cover there. And best of all, they're super, super great for students. And then again, you're really, really going to build out your skills that are super necessary as you kind of move forward in your careers and go on, through post-secondary and through university there. Okay, and then this is just kind of some screen grabs to hopefully get you excited about some of the courses. We like to keep them kind of fun, kind of fast-paced. We do some editing and some animations in them. So they're like your kind of traditional online courses, but they're just way cooler. They're way more effective and way shorter. And we have things that make kind of the learning stick a lot better because you're doing some practice. You're doing some, mock quizzes and mock interviews while you're taking these courses. So it really, really helps. And, just 2 hours. So it's a really, really great crash course to kind of go through these online courses there. So I'll give you guys a second. Just a reminder again, just go to speechdojo.org. You'll get all of those resources to you absolutely free of cost. And we're really, really going to be excited to kind of hear how you like them and hear how you are kind of going about them. And if you have any success stories after taking them, definitely feel free to contact us and let us know how it goes for you. So with that, we will be moving on to one of the product cases that I had mentioned a little bit earlier here. So if you have our hack packs, you can find a link to this case study in the hack pack, as well as the project template that we have there. But I believe Rebecca, our super great project assistant lead here, she'll be also dropping it in chat as well here. So what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be giving you guys an actual case study. So this is a startup that actually exists that's called Alto. And what they are is they're a pharmaceutical company. So I've given you all of the details of this case study, how this business works, what their business is, some of their numbers, some of their market numbers, as well as a slide template to actually make your own slides based on the case project that we have here. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to open up the case study, view all the details of the case, and then also view the Canva template that we have available for you guys. What it is basically is it outlines some of the slides that might be nice to use, some kind of like easy icons and logos, and then you're able to add words in there. So if you haven't used Canva before, everything on the left-hand side of Canva is where you're able to edit things. So for example, if you want to add text, you just head over to the left panel, you click the more options, and then you add text to your slides and to your panels there. Again, this case is very, very bare bones. It gives you the very, very bare bones structure of this startup and of this company. So feel free to be creative. If you have a better strategy that this company can use, or a better kind of marketing and branding kind of kits and tools for this company, feel free to implement it. Don't be bound kind of by the exact details and the nitty-gritty things of this case. You probably want to keep just the general idea and the general things that what they do the same, so that everybody will understand it. But what we're going to do here then is I'm going to give everybody about 10 minutes to go through and make their own Canva slide deck based on the case that we have there. And then you guys are going to be sharing it in chat so you guys can see each other's kind of slides and each other's pitches there. And then we also have a lovely, lovely guest presenter to do a mock pitch based on this. So I'm going to set a timer for about, I'll give us about 7 minutes now. And what we're going to do, 7 minutes might be a little bit low, so we'll go back to 10. We're going to get a 10-minute timer running. So what you guys have to do again is go onto the case study for Alto, read the details of the case, and then pick what you think is best used, right? So you might not need to put every single thing on that kind of case study into your slide deck. There might be some extraneous information that you have to whittle down and figure out what will deliver a really, really effective 2-minute pitch. So that's what we're going to be doing for the next 10 minutes. And then again, feel free to ask any questions in chat kind of as this goes. If you have any like logistical questions about Canva, definitely happy to help with that as well. But I've started our 10-minute timer here. And in 10 minutes, we're going to get our guest presenter, Armand, who has been working on his Alto case pitch as well, to actually give a live demonstration of what a pitch to this could look like and what this slide deck could look like. And then at the end, as you guys send your Canva links in chat, in Slido, we're also going to be potentially looking at some of your guys' slide decks and doing a little bit of a criticism and constructing together and doing some creative, constructive criticisms and reviewing some of these slide decks as well there. So again, the timer has started. We have about 8.5 minutes left to do your slide decks. So get to it fast. Try do as many, get as far as you can. If you don't finish it, that's totally cool. That's totally fine. But we'll kind of keep going here as we go on. And in the meantime, while you guys are working away at your slide decks, we will also answer any questions that pop up in chat here. And I'll just periodically come in reminding you guys of the time as we kind of go through this here. And I strongly encourage you to take part in the slide in the mock slide making, because it's really one of the ways that you're going to make that learning stick. That you're going to go, okay, this is everything that I learned. I know what we have to put in our slides. Now, if you do it one more time, it's going to make that learning so much more stronger than if you don't choose to take part in the case. So I really recommend that you take part in one of these cases and then you wait till the end to view how one of our instructors would have done it as well. And then we can give him some feedback as well, give him some constructive criticism on what would have made his slide deck better, what would have made his presentation better, as he kind of goes with it and goes through it with us there. And we do have one more question in chat, and it says, "Hi, when did you get into public speaking? And did it always come naturally to you?" So for me, public speaking was kind of one of the things that I took up early in junior high. So I joined one of the debate teams, and debate was really good for me because it really kind of brought me out of my shell. So to answer the second part of your question, no, it did not always come naturally to me for sure. I was one of those kids that was always shy in class, even shy to raise my hand and kind of speak up and say things. So it kind of speaks to the fact that practice is so important, right? Putting yourself in situations where you're very uncomfortable and just doing that again and again and again is something that's going to make you better at public speaking. And that's a very daunting task to do. But the first time you do it, it's going to be really hard. The second time you do it, still going to be hard, but a little bit easier. And then the more and more you do it, the less and less hard it's going to get, until at some point you'll just feel very comfortable and feel very natural kind of being able to speak in front of people and articulate your thoughts. Now sometimes I think I talk too much, and I think I'm, not as efficient with my talking. But it goes to show that with practice, you really can, flex that muscle. It's like working out, right? The more you do it, the more comfortable you're going to get doing it. So yeah, just to answer your question, let me know if you have any follow-ups or any thoughts, kind of based on that as well. And for everyone who's still constructing their slides, we have about 6 minutes left before we're going to be doing our mock slide presentation, as well as the kind of constructives and criticisms on your slide decks, if you guys choose to submit those. And for anyone who is just joining us or just hopping in, we are all building our slide decks right now for a case that we made called Alto. So this is a pharmaceutical company. So this case study outlines what they do as a business and some of their market details that they would need for a slide deck. And what we're doing is we're using the template provided in chat to build our own slide decks based on the presentation that we just had here. So even if you're late, even if you just came in halfway through the presentation, strongly recommend that you try it, give it a go. It's a super short case, and it's a super small kind of 2-minute slide deck. So really gives you a chance to kind of practice that muscle before I know some of you guys are going to be going on to present your Hack the North projects and any other projects in your university and your careers and kind of beyond that. So really encourage you to kind of take part in this one as we have about 4.5 minutes left. Okay, we have another question that has popped up in chat here. And the question is, do you have any tips and tricks on making an effective slide deck? And the follow-up question is, when is it too long or too short? So the first kind of step and the first tip that I'd go about doing in making an effective slide deck is just outlining every single element that you want to include. So at the very, very beginning, I can actually go back to this slide here. But at the very, very beginning of the presentation, we went through kind of all the possible elements of a pitch deck. So you can notice here that there's actually a lot of elements that you can possibly use. Now, it doesn't mean that you want to use all of them, but you want to kind of start identifying what parts of this pitch do you want to use that will suit your product the best. So for example, if I'm doing kind of a hackathon and I want to be able to do a 2-minute product pitch that I'm presenting for this hackathon, I want to do my cover, my problem, my solution, and I really want to focus on my product demo in this case because, at a hackathon, they want to know that your product is really good, but they want to know that it works and it works the way that you want it to work. I might skip the market size and business model for a hackathon because, that's not really what you're focused on, depending on the circumstances. I might shows to showcase my team, and then show some of that underlying magic, right? Show the technology that makes this project really, really cool and make it work. And then to the question of when is it too long or too short? Again, that's dependent on the context and the situation, right? Generally, for kind of short pitches, people like to keep it around 2 to 3 minutes. That's kind of an industry standard for short pitches. But there's also kind of times where you're going to want to do a longer pitch, especially if you're asking for kind of direct funding from individuals. So if you're just pitching to a single person, sometimes startups can have about 10-minute pitch rounds, where they go through every single element because, if a venture capital or an angel investor is going to be, potentially putting in $1 million or $10 million into your startup for kind of that initial funding, you're going to want to really show them exactly all the details that are going to make them want to do that. So again, very situational, but the kind of important takeaway to have from that is you want to outline it from the get-go. You want to outline, okay, what elements am I going to use for this pitch? And then what is kind of a suitable time for my scenario, for my context? And a way that you can go about doing that again is showing, okay, am I being efficient with the language that I'm using? Am I repeating myself over and over again when I'm saying my pitch? Or am I being concise and being very, very effective in conveying what I want to convey? And that's kind of a good way to engage what you're doing. And then kind of a last tip for that is just give your pitch to people. Give your pitch to people that is kind of low stakes. So if you have family members or friends that you want to pitch to, that's a really, really great way to get feedback on your pitch. If they think that you're repeating yourself too much or there's something that you said way too many times or not enough, they'll tell you. Make sure that they're honest with you and get some constructive feedback on your pitches there. So we're coming in on our final minute here of our time to make our own pitch decks here. So I encourage you guys to start wrapping up your slide decks. If you're already done, feel free to drop it into the Slido chat there, so other people can kind of view your slides, view your pitch decks. And then in about a minute here, we're going to have one of my friends, Armand. I'll give him a little bit of an intro as well before he comes. But we're going to have him give a mock pitch on this Alto case that we've made with a pitch deck that he made as well there. So again, we have about a minute left before we want to be wrapping up our mock pitches. If you're comfortable sharing them, feel free to share it in chat. Then we can kind of go through them. I really, really encourage you to do something like that because this scenario is super, super low stakes. Even if your pitch is not the strongest and you don't think it's super, super greatly designed, there's absolutely nothing to lose by sharing it with the rest of us here and by getting some kind of feedback and critique on your pitch here today. So we'll be wrapping up in about 20 seconds here as our time whittles down. And let me just go back to our slide for the pitch deck. Okie dokie. I think we should be ready to get into our mock pitches here. So I'm going to invite Armand to come on stage. as he gets to deliver our mock pitch for today. A little bit about Arman. Arman is actually one of the writers of our courses. So he was very, very instrumental in writing the jobs course here. A little bit about Arman. Arman is going into his third year. He's in his third year at the University of Pennsylvania. He's also a summer intern at McKinsey, which is one of, if not the kind of most prestigious consulting firms in the world. So it really, really goes to show that the courses and quality of resources that you find on speechdojo.org are really, really high because, in writing this, he was able to use the skills and use the tools that, we shared on these courses to get those internships and get to where he is now. So really, really excited to have him here today doing our guest presentation. There he is, looking good. And I will turn it over to you, Arman.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. I'll maybe just let you pull up the slides. All right. So the current pharmacy experience is failing people. After going to a doctor's office for a prescription, people then have to go to pharmacies on a regular basis to keep getting it refilled. But here's the thing. Pharmacies are inconvenient to travel to, and in the age of COVID, they're potentially even unsafe. Our solution is an online pharmacy offering convenient recurring or on-demand delivery of medication. How does it work? Well, first, the patient has to download our app. After downloading our app, they simply scan their prescription, choose recurring or one-time delivery, and then get the medication delivered straight to their doorstep. What this means is that patients get a completely contactless experience and never have to set foot in a pharmacy. So how do we make money? Well, we make money by taking a 5% fee on each transaction. In practice, our average patient yields $323 in profit every year. But the most exciting thing is the market size. Despite the market being so inefficient, the prescription drug industry in the United States is very large. In fact, it's $263 billion. But it's also really fragmented, which means that there's a tremendous opportunity for us to capture market share. Our ask is for funding. We've built a strong app, and we've just demonstrated market validation through our exciting growth. With more funding, we can supercharge that growth by increasing the size of our sales team and expanding into new geographies, allowing us to both capture greater market share and enter new markets. Thank you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, virtual round of applause for Arman, our presenter today. Apologies on the back end for flipping the slides sometimes at the wrong time. But again, huge thank you to Arman for coming out and presenting for us here. And it kind of goes to show that, again, Arman was kind of given this case of a very, very simple but kind of in-depth overview of what Alto did. And you're able to whittle that down to the very, very bare bones of what an investor would want to hear. Exactly what anyone in an audience would want to hear to understand what that product is, what makes it interesting, and why somebody would want to invest in that product there. So again, big virtual round of applause for Arman there. And as we kind of move on to the kind of concluding parts of our presentation here, feel free to drop any comments and thoughts that you have in chat on this presentation here, where we're always really kind of looking to improve the presentations and projects that we do for our customers and for our the people that we present to and the people that we work with here. So if you have any feedback for us or feedback for the pitch itself, definitely would love to hear anything or any thoughts that you have on the presentation, because at the end of the day, pitches are never perfect. There's always going to be things that you can improve on, and there's always going to be, ways that you can make things better. So kind of as we go to our closing kind of parts of this presentation, I wanted to remind you guys just of a few things. The first thing is, this is going to take practice. Being able to practice and really flex those muscles of your presentations is going to be so key in as you guys move forward into your careers and then university. There's going to be times when you stumble over your words. There's going to be times where you forget what you were going to say next, or you get so overwhelmed with your nerves that your body freezes up and you experience kind of that freeze that a lot of public speakers get. But it's really important that you know that that's okay, and that's very normal and kind of going through your public speaking journey, because most people have a fear of public speaking. The stats, they back up that an overwhelming majority of people aren't comfortable going up and delivering a pitch. They aren't comfortable, at a business meeting speaking their thoughts, or at a tech meeting, sharing what they were working on. So it's really important that we all recognize that, and we all kind of take the steps to overcome that. As we kind of go here, one of the questions that popped up in chat was, what are quick tips on the best pitching practices? The number one tip is be concise, right? Be simple, concise, and to the point when you're pitching. If you viewed Armand's pitch, that was about a 1.5 minute pitch that kind of encapsulated the entire company. It showed what they do, how they do it, and why people should invest in them. And he did it in about 1 minute and 30 seconds, because that's one of the main tips, right? You want to be confident because you know what you're talking about. You know your company better than anybody else. And then you want to be very efficient in the language that you use. So if that's kind of one quick tip that I'd give, be very efficient in your language here. So I'm going to hang around for a couple of seconds as if there are any kind of concluding questions today. But just to conclude, thank you so much for having me. It has been an absolute pleasure. People that come out to Hack the North, people that come out to these hackathons, you guys are absolutely brilliant. You guys are some of the leading minds and that are going to be the face of our tech industry for years to come. So I hope that you're able to take some of this knowledge and really run with it. Don't forget to check out speechdojo.org for all your kind of needs for public speaking training, for the jobs course and for the presentations course. I strongly recommend that you check those resources out and see if they're kind of right for you. But I look forward to seeing you guys' projects and seeing you guys' live demos kind of as the day goes on. And I really wish you the best of luck with your Hack the North experiences, but then again, for the rest of your university and career progression and beyond. So never hesitate to reach out to me. My email is given there, josh.carather@speechdojo.org. So I'd love to hear from you guys at a later time. Again, thank you so much for having me, and that brings this presentation to an end.